Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this insane chess study. It is white to move and try to draw this game. You can pause the video for a while to try to figure out the solution on your own. Okay, now let's see what happens if we played king takes e3 for example. Now these pawns are going down like this, and he's going to promote with these pawns. If we play king takes e3, he's going to push g2, and there's no possible way for us to stop the pawn from promoting. So it's definitely not king takes. Now you might say there's a better way to win both of these two pawns by playing bishop to d4. He goes g2, we play bishop takes. He tries to promote and then get our bishop, but we play king to f5. He promotes, we take, he takes, and then we take this pawn, and there's no possible way for him to defend the pawn on e7. And after he pushed, for example, we play this, and then this is a draw. But the first move, yes, this is actually losing because he can play g2, but bishop to d4 is not a draw because he can play e2. Yes, this is really cool. After this e2 move, even if we played king to f3, trying to stop this pawn from promoting, we play king to f1. Sorry, black plays king to f1. Now we're gonna lose this because we are playing with white. We need to stop this pawn from promoting, so we play bishop to c3, but then he pushes g2, and then two potential queens. We cannot stop both of them. This is why we're losing. So not bishop to d4 and not king takes e3. The most common sense move, it is king to f3, trying to stop this pawn from pushing. Now there is a slight trick by black here, and it is g4 check. Of course, we do not take the pawn on g4 because he can play g2 and then promote, and we're completely losing. But what if we took the pawn on g3 though? What will happen here? He's gonna play king to d2, trying to push this pawn. Now even if our king is close, we cannot stop the pawn from promoting because the king is defending the pawn. We need the bishop. And there's only one move in this position that actually draws the game, and it is bishop to d4. Bishop to d4 because whenever he's able to push, we're gonna play bishop to f2. He's gonna promote, we're gonna sack, he's gonna take, and this is the exact same draw I showed you before. But you might say, well, there's another trap by black. He can play e5. We cannot take because there's this e2 and we're actually losing this game. And we cannot actually go back trying to give this check to win the queen because this is a queen promotion with a check. That's why we're losing. So we don't take. Instead, we play bishop to c5. Whenever he pushes, we do not play bishop to f2 to stop the pawn from promoting because this is actually losing. It is losing because of e4. You might say, well, why? I mean, we can just take this pawn, right? No, he can play e3. The bishop needs to move back. He's going to promote. We have to take, and after takes, king to f3, king to d2, and this is obviously a win for black. Instead, after this e2 move, we don't play bishop to f2. We play bishop to b4 check. The king moves here, securing this square on e1. Then we can take this pawn. Because whenever he promotes, we sacrifice the bishop for the pawn. King takes, we get closer, we win the pawn. And if he push, we just play king to f4, promote, take, and draw. Right? So far, so good. Okay, so this is if we took here, right? Now, so after taking to f3, what if he did not play this check? Because most likely he's not going to play it. He's going to play something even more powerful. And now we're getting started with the most insane moves. King to d2. Of course, we cannot go after this pawn on g3 because he can push. As I told you before, the king is unable to stop the pawn because it's already defended by the king. We need the bishop, but the bishop cannot give a check because it's not defended. So we don't take the pawn. In this position, we have to play something very, very powerful. We need to go after the pawns. There are 4 pawns, and our bishop needs to stop all of them in some way, and the king as well. In this position, I know it's insane. We have to play bishop to f8. Yes, bishop to f8. This is insane. For example, he plays e2. Now we can go bishop takes e7. He promotes to a queen. We have this check. King moves away. We sack the bishop for the queen. We take this and we just take this pawn, and this is a draw. Right? This is cool, right? Now, what do you say? Like, he can play, for example, this check on g4. Oh, wow. Now we're getting started. Now you might say, of course we don't take this pawn because he's able to push and promote. So we take the pawn on g3, right? Wrong. This is actually losing. It's actually losing for white. Why? Because after e2, bishop takes e7, we don't have time to play bishop to b4 check. We know why? Because we put our king on a dark square, and then he's going to be able to promote with a check. That's why whenever he plays his check, we cannot take either of these two pawns, and we cannot obviously move back because he is able to promote. So we have to block the pawns by playing g2, and most importantly, move away from this check when he promotes. Now, if he played, for example, e2, we go bishop takes, and then you might say, well, promote to a queen, bishop takes, king moves, takes, and takes, and this is a draw. Well, there's a slight trick here by black. Slight trick. After bishop takes, sorry, it's not bishop takes. For example, in this position, instead of playing the move e2, he can play, for example, this e5 move. After e5, I guess we have this move on b4, bishop to b4 check, king moves away, and then I guess we're able to take these pawns. We can take this one as well. Whenever he takes, he promotes the exact same position as before. We sack the bishop for the pawn, and then we get to this pawn. Okay, so this is if he pushed this pawn. Okay, but now, what if he pushed e2? As you can see, the king cannot stop the pawn from promoting. We go bishop takes, but he knows that we're going to give a check here on b4, and he's going to win the queen. Or, for example, if we promote for a rook, for example. After this check, king moves, we take, and this is exactly the same draw. Well, he stops us from playing bishop to b4, but playing king to c3. We cannot give him this check anymore. So what do we do? Now, there are two moves in this position. One is winning, one is drawing this game, and one is completely losing. The move that is completely losing, it is bishop to d6. Here we are setting up a trap. If he promotes to a queen, we go bishop to b4, sacrificing the bishop. If the king moved away, we just take the queen, and this is obviously a draw. But if he takes with the king, as you can see, the king cannot move. The queen is defending the pawn, the queen is taking control of these squares, and these are as well. So this is stalemate. But the thing is, after e2 and bishop takes and king to c3, he's not going to promote to a queen. He will promote to after this bishop to d6, and then he's going to promote to a rook. So now this check will not work because we have time to take, and this is completely losing for us. And after this rook promotion, for example, you might say, this is still a draw. Well, it is not, because after king takes g3, there's a winning move for black, and there's a losing move for it. Sorry, there's a drawing move for black. For example, if you played check on g1, this is drawing. This is a draw because of king to h4. He gets his king closer, and then we play bishop to g3, blocking the rook's defense of the pawn. He gets his king closer, and then we take, and this is a theoretical draw. I mean, as long as the bishop is close, is never going to be winning for black. So it's going to be a draw. But instead of the check on g1, there is rook to e6 attacking the bishop first. Now you might say, well, what is the difference here? Well, I mean, we can just move the bishop, right? Well, black can play rook to g6. The rook is on a light square, and the pawn is also on a light square. So only the king can target the pawn. The bishop cannot help. So that leaves us with a very dangerous place. We cannot move the king. The pawn's going to start to push, and the king's going to get close. We move the bishop with a check. He plays king to d3. We go back. He's going to play king there. We're going to move the bishop. And once he's able to play king to f5, the king is on a light square, defending the light square pawn. That's going to give, like, this strong connection, you know? The rook will be able to move and give us checks. We are forced to move down, and then this pawn will turn to a queen in the next future. Because then we have to sacrifice the bishop for the pawn in order not to have a queen, but black will still have the rook, and that's a losing endgame. That's why after e2, bishop takes, king here, bishop to d6 is losing because he can promote to a rook. So what is the best move? We don't play bishop to d6. We need to maintain this kind of check happening so that we can win the queen or the rook. We play bishop to d8. We're trying to give him this check. So for example, he promotes the queen or a rook, it doesn't matter. We have a check, and then we pick up the piece. But what if he played another great move? King to b4. Stopping this check. What do we do? What do we do here? Well, now we play a very beautiful move, and it is bishop to c7. You might say, well, we are allowing the queen promotion. Well, remember the early trap of the stalemate? We sacrifice the bishop, forcing him to take, and the king cannot move. This is stalemate. That's why he cannot do so. He cannot promote to a queen. But you might say, well, he can promote to a rook. And this is winning for black because he can defend the pawn, right? Wrong. Now you're going to see the difference between this variation and the previous variation that I showed you when we played bishop to d6. Now you're going to see. Now here he has the rook. We need to take this pawn. After this check, of course, this is still the draw because after the king moves, we can play bishop here to block the rook's defense of the pawn and then win it back, and this is a draw. The difference between bishop to d6 and bishop to c7, this rotation, that after he plays this move, rook to e7, trying to defend the pawn from behind, he cannot play that because of bishop to d6 check, and we pick up the rook, and this is a draw. And for example, you might say, well, he can play rook to e4, defending the pawn. No, this is not defending the pawn. We can play bishop to f4, defending the pawn with the king, and then blocking the rook's vision of the pawn. And this is still a draw. So the difference here that when the rook was on d6, black gains a tempo by attacking our bishop first and then defending the pawn from behind. But now, since we played bishop to d8 and then bishop to c7, forcing the king back here, now he does not have time after king takes to attack our rook, so to attack our bishop, because we have a check and we win it. And he doesn't have this move because we can block it, and of course he does not have this check because of the king here. And then, for example, he gets his king closer, bishop to g3, king gets closer, and king takes, and this is also a draw. I really hope you like this video. Consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching.